Coming up next on Tider Insider TV, the countdown to kickoff is on and the TITV crew is ready to preview the first 4 games on Alabama's 2010 schedule. Can San Jose State pose any kind of challenge to the defending national champions? Plus, who will win a battle of coaching wits, Paterno or Saban? Also, an Alabama native will lead his team against the Tide. And can a high-powered Hog offense host a threat in Fayetteville? TITV starts right now.
Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome into another edition of Tider Insider TV. It's preview time. Tider Insider TV presented by Buffalo Rock alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm Gary Harris, and Rodney, the sound everybody loves to hear. Ice cold Pepsi being opened up tonight. That's what we're going to be enjoying on the program. And we're also going to be enjoying breaking down Alabama's first 4 games, telling you how we think they'll go. And of course, during the season, we'll do it week to week. But right now, Rodney, let's begin with the opener. San Jose State, new head coach Mike McIntyre. If that name sounds familiar, his dad, George McIntyre, former head coach at Vanderbilt, actually beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa back in 1984 when Mike was on that staff. The 2009 rushing defense, one of the worst in the country, next to last. They've lost 14 of their last 17 key games on the schedule. Of course, Alabama, they're at Wisconsin, they're at Utah. So when you look at this game, Rodney, I guess the only question is, how bad will it get?
Well, who knows? But, you know, when you look at how bad their rushing defense is, think back to the national championship game, the #1 rushing defense in the country. The Texas Longhorns, Alabama has 2 running backs, obviously Mark Ingram and Trent Richardson, both going over 100 yards. What will they do against San Jose State?
You know, I think Mike McIntyre is going to do a good job there given time, but the bottom line is right now, this is a mismatch. So I think it's safe to say that both you and I are going to pick Alabama to pull this one out.
Yeah, I don't think there's any threat for Alabama to their winning streak to end.
In fact, the biggest news in regards to this game will be the fact that Bryant-Denny Stadium, now 100,000 plus, we'll get to see the South end zone edition. So the stadium, probably a bigger story than the actual opponent when you're just being realistic.
Certainly, and I think, Gary, you know, that's going to be the talk of the week, obviously. And, you know, you look at that San Jose State team, we'll make our predictions later, but they're a team that, honestly, they thought about shutting the program down. So they've got a long way to go.
Well, you know, game 2 on Alabama's schedule, now it's not as easy. It will feature a battle of coaching wits. Joe Paterno will bring his Penn State Nittany Lions in Tuscaloosa to face Coach Saban and the Tide. Joe Pa beginning his 45th season in Happy Valley. During that time, he's won 394 games, the most ever by an FBS coach. He has 2 national championships and, of course, 3 Big Ten titles. And remember, they didn't join the Big Ten until just a few years ago. They've been independent for many years. Saban, meanwhile, is getting set to begin his 16th season as collegiate head coach. And already, while in the SEC, he's won 3 SEC championships and 2 national titles. Of course, one coming last year at Bama in undefeated fashion, the other 2003 at LSU. Let's take a look at some of the team notes for Penn State. And running back Evan Royster, I tell you, he is a serious Heisman candidate. Of course, Mark Ingram will be as well, but he can really move the football on the ground. They'll have a new quarterback. Kevin Newsom looks to take over, and defensive strengths always up front. They're always good. They're a very good tackling team. And one thing we know, Rodney, is when you play Penn State, you have to be fundamentally sound because they will be.
And they're going to be very physical, Gary. They're going to play the style. They're going to try to keep a low-scoring game, run the football with Royster. And I'll tell you what, they better hope they do because Kevin Newsom has a long way to go as a passer.
You know, and even though it was last year, and of course they're changing quarterbacks, still though, in the bowl game on a muddy field against a big physical SEC team, Penn State beat LSU. I think they're using that as a positive carrying over into the offseason as they get ready for Alabama.
Well, yeah, they are, but let's look at it too. They're missing number 17, the quarterback who just threw that ball. And again, I think he is a big loss for Penn State, especially that early in the season in a game against Alabama.
Should be interesting. Going to be a lot of hype. Nothing official, but it looks like ESPN Game Day will be in Tuscaloosa. That's what we're hearing at least for this game. And of course, it'll be on ESPN that night in prime time. So big ball game. When Alabama and Penn State get together, it's superb. Great rivalry that was built when Coach Bryant was at Alabama. A lot of respect between the two programs. A lot of similarities between the two programs, really.
Oh, absolutely, Gary. Again, again, they have, you know, when you look at it, they've always won with the same kind of style, you know, a little bit maybe plain, people say defense, run the football, those types of things, but as you mentioned, very, very fundamentally sound. And
uniforms, both teams have kept them simple through the years. Not a lot of changes there. On to game 3, and Alabama will travel to face a man who, of course, is an Alabama native, Duke head coach David Cutcliffe. He grew up in Birmingham, went to school at Alabama, was a student assistant coach under Coach Bryant. Later, of course, he made his name as a coach at Tennessee as a longtime assistant under Phil Fulmer, but was also the head coach at Ole Miss from '99 to 2004. And, you know, even though Alabama's got better personnel, Cutcliffe has a lot of incentive. He's a good coach, a good game planner. Duke will have a nice scheme, and I wouldn't be shocked if they at least kept this game competitive for a while.
Well, again, it's on the road. Certainly that's a little bit of a home field advantage for Duke, but it's in between that Penn State game and the Arkansas game, and it's, what do they call those, the sandwich games, whatever. But I think he is going to be competitive, and he always has a good quarterback, always has a good offensive system. Again, not the athletes Alabama has, no question about that.
Alabama going to historic Wallace Wade Stadium. Of course, Wallace Wade made a name for himself at Alabama, then went on to great success as well at Duke University. Now, the last time the Tide and the Blue Devils met on the football field was back in 2006, and Mike Shule, of course, was still the Bama head coach, and Alabama won this game 30-14, but don't let the final score fool you. The Tide trailed at halftime, and really this one went right down to the wire before Alabama secured the victory. All the home fans were on the edge of their seat in this one because Duke at the time under Ted Roof was awful, but they gave the Tide a scare.
You're right, they were, Gary, and again, it was somewhat of a surprise that they held it close, but they played well, they didn't turn the ball over, and they did what they had to do to keep it competitive, but Alabama, again, too strong.
It'll be a nice trip for Alabama fans. Again, Wallace Wade Stadium, not a very big stadium, but very beautiful. North Carolina, as they get into the fall, will be a pretty time of year. It'll be a lot of fun for the Tide, I think, to go up there to Duke, and Alabama certainly has a better football team. Well, next on the Tide schedule, though, following that game, will be a trip to Fayetteville, Arkansas. Still to come on TITV. Last season, the Razorbacks didn't put up much of a fight, but will that change this year on the Hogs' home turf? We'll discuss. Plus, make our predictions for games 1 through 4. I think you already know who we're picking in the San Jose State game, but we'll break down the other ones as well. And we'll be taking your phone calls and getting to your emails. The number, as always, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us, TITV@WVUA-TV.com. We already got a couple in today. We will get those on the air for you. Stay tuned. You're watching the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only, Tider Insider TV. We're coming right back.